Hi everyone, I'm Sophie Milburn, editor of the MSP Channel Insights portfolio, and today I'm joined by Rick from Forescout. So could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you're focusing on today?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Rick Ferguson. I'm the VP of Security Intelligence here at Forescout. I've been in the industry, if there's such a thing, for over 30 years now, but about 25, 26 of that has been focused purely on cybersecurity, and it's started out in tech support on a help desk and worked my way through the years. But the last I guess 20 years has been really focused on the research side of things. So looking at threat actors, how they operate, what they do, looking at technology and technological and societal shifts,
Yeah.
what that might mean for criminal opportunity or for opportunity for innovation, and how all that applies to cybersecurity. And then, I'm out there spreading the good word when I'm facing that direction, and when I'm facing that direction, I'm working with product teams
Mhm.
to make sure that we're building better solutions.
Fantastic. Well, very, very topical and very important for today's society, like you said. Then, and you'll also be attending InfoSecurity Europe this year. So can you tell me a little bit about what you'll be discussing there?
Yeah, absolutely. We were just laughing about it. For
Mhm.
those of you watching this today, Friday that we're recording it on, and the event, the event begins on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I just finished my presentation deck just before the recording. So yeah, I'm talking about post-quantum cryptography,
Mhm.
what that means from a threat perspective, like why should we be worried about the advent of quantum computing, what that means for cryptography, and what that means from a threat perspective, and thus how do we prepare? Like, should we be worried? What should we be worried about, and what should we be doing about it?
Right. And I'm sure your presentation is going to be fantastic. All of your
I spent
experience.
most of yesterday trying to generate an image of a stealth combine harvester.
It's those things that just take up so much time. There isn't the things that you go, oh, it'll be a quick job, and then it takes up like half an hour, and you're like, how did I get
Unsurprisingly,
here?
the AI doesn't have in its learning corpus any existing images of the stealth combine harvester, so
Well,
it
it
took a
should see.
while.
AI can't do everything, not quite yet. But no, with your experience across, IT, IoT, and cyber physical systems, what are the most kind of significant shifts in risk that you're seeing in critical infrastructure at the moment?
Specifically in CNI, or in, let's say, in CNI and associated industries, because I
Yeah.
think this does apply across the board where people have a greater prevalence of non-traditional devices, right? So when I say non-traditional, I mean not IT.
Hmm.
Or not usually under the purview of IT cybersecurity
Right.
organizations, let's say. Um, I think there's a couple of things, and they kind of go hand in hand. One
Mhm.
is certainly the growing number of attacks against non-traditional devices.
Yeah.
So we are seeing OT, operational technology, very much more targeted. And we are also seeing, when I say non-traditional devices, this is firmly in the IT realm, but it's not a traditional attack surface. So things like edge devices, VPN concentrators, firewalls, that kind of stuff,
Right.
routers. That's IP, or at least IT, or at least network infrastructure devices. But the amount of vulnerabilities, 0 days and otherwise,
Mhm.
in those kinds of devices has increased exponentially, and the time to weaponization has decreased at the same time. So the risk really goes up, certainly from those kinds of edge devices. Attackers love them because they offer them a privileged position within the network. It's part of your security stack, but it's very often not visible to your security stack.
Yeah.
And it occupies this privileged position for further lateral movement into the environment. So they're being heavily targeted. That's ongoing, it's growing, but it's quite new.
Yeah.
Um, and when it comes to CNI and OT and those kinds of environments and equipment, what we have seen is a significant uptick in interest from state level actors.
Right.
So those things have for some time been targeted by hacktivist threat actors. And hacktivists traditionally are cause motivated, right? They're doing something because they have a cause that they believe in. Rightly or wrongly, it's motivated by some belief in a cause.
Right.
And it traditionally, that kind of activity focused on things like denial of service. It focused on things like defacement, those kinds of activities. But what we're seeing is a huge growth in the numbers of so-called activist threat actors. But we are seeing an upskilling. So now it's not just DDoS and web defacement. They are actively going after things like PLCs. They might, carry out a defacement attack on a PLC, but they're just as likely to actually manipulate controls, settings, those kinds of things, right? And along with that, what we're seeing is state level actors getting involved in that scene as well. So in two ways, either by outsourcing to hacktivists or
Right.
by posing as activists themselves. So we call them faketivists. I don't know if that's going to catch on or not, but
I
but
like
it,
it.
what they do is they adopt a hacktivist persona because it gives them like arm's length to the activity that they're carrying out. It gives them plausible deniability. Oh, it wasn't us. It wasn't us, Iran. It wasn't us, Russia. It wasn't us, China. It was a hacktivist. We had nothing to do with it. So we
Right.
see a big increase in that. That's changing the threat landscape. And of course, over the very near horizon, which appears
Mm.
to be getting nearer every time I wake up,
Mm.
are the much more capable AI models, the Mythoses, the GPT-5.5 cybers, and anything else that's going to come along after that.
Yeah, which is something just comes to my mind that is absolutely crazy. The amount of conversations that I'm having about cyber security and all of those things, but I've never really thought about the psychology behind the motivations behind the threat actors, which is it sounds like I'm missing a big gap there. It sounds very
Yeah, there's a
important.
bunch of different ones. So, like traditional cybercrime, obviously, is financially motivated, right? And one of the conversations that you used to always have when talking about the future of threats is, yeah, but how do they monetize that? Because if they can't, they won't do it. Like,
Yeah,
if there's no purpose. A hacktivist might, if it causes disruption or brand damage or something else. But
right.
hacktivists were very much in the minority. So traditional cybercrime, financially motivated, hacktivism, cause motivated, more about disruption. State level, traditionally more espionage, information theft, IP theft
Right.
motivated. But obviously now we live in a different world of much more active, hot conflicts. And that also changes the calculus on state
Yeah.
level attacks.
I feel like I could have a whole conversation with you just about that. So I might need to book in another interview to talk about it. I'm like learning so much as I go along, but I'll keep going with the questions that I've got. So many organizations are now dealing with increasingly complex and interconnected environments. So where are you
Yeah.
kind of seeing the biggest gaps in visibility and control for, that attackers are exploiting today?
Non-traditional stuff. I mean,
Mm.
I've been in this industry, like I said, for a long time, and the tools, processes, governance regimes have been around for almost as long. Although, when I joined, I don't think we even called it cybersecurity, so maybe not quite as long, but almost as long.
Mm.
But very much for those
Mm.
traditional IT environments, places where, for example, you could install an agent and your
Yeah.
visibility is kind of restricted to the things that are agentable. What
Mm.
we find at Forescout time after time after time is ask someone how many endpoints do you have, and they'll
Mm.
tell you a number. You go in and put something on the network that sees everything,
Mm.
and it can be two times that number. Not always, but it's a significant amount more endpoints than they think they have, and that's a
Yeah.
huge concern because attackers don't differentiate. Attackers don't care about your silos, and they don't care about what you know about and what you don't know about. In fact, they love what you don't know about.
Well, yeah.
We did some research a few years ago now, 3 years ago, uh, maybe it was 2022, called Ransomware for IoT, R for IoT.
Mm.
Um, and we weren't saying, hey, look, threat actors can deploy ransomware on your IoT devices and then ask for a ransom,
Yeah.
because it comes back to that question, well, how would you monetize that? Who cares, right? Just
Right.
reimage it and you're off again, or buy a new
Mm.
one or whatever, right? Not a big deal.
Yeah.
But what we proposed in this threat scenario was, well, hey, an attacker could find at your organization an internet exposed IP camera with a
Mm.
vulnerability, exploit that vulnerability to get into your network,
Mm.
drop a ransomware payload across the IT estate, and
Yeah.
then move laterally into the OT network and our theoretical venue for this was a hospital, right?
Right.
So drop a payload everywhere, move into OT, turn
Mhm.
off the lights, turn off the air conditioning, and then activate the ransomware and say, hey, by the way, are you going to pay because all your air conditioning and lighting is down and you can't do any medical procedures and people are
Right.
literally on tables right now. So that was research. And
Mhm.
then 2 years after that, the Akira ransomware group started using exposed IP cameras as initial entry points to drop ransomware. So
Right.
it's that stuff. It's the stuff where you don't push agents. You cannot govern and you cannot secure
Yeah.
what you cannot see. And that doesn't just mean OT and medical devices, which is what a lot of people think. They think, well, I don't manufacture or I don't move luggage around Heathrow Airport or
Yeah.
that's not my bag, so I don't mind. But what about your building management system? What about your voice over IP system? What about your heating, ventilation, air conditioning system? What about all the third parties that have access to that? What about the vulnerabilities that are present in that? Who manages it? Who's responsible for it? Who can see it? Who can tell you what the firmware level is?
Yeah.
In many cases, the answer to all of those questions is no one or I don't know. And
Yeah.
that's a bad place to be.
Yeah, and it's just having to think outside the box, having to think like a threat actor to kind of, get ahead of that. It's, yeah, you just always have to be ahead of the game. But kind of, I guess, looking ahead and looking forward to the next couple of years, how do you see the threat landscape kind of evolving within this and what we've been speaking about?
We're seeing a massive shift towards token theft. Not in that attackers are moving away from credential theft,
Mhm.
but I think medium term, the game is up for passwords. People have kind of accepted that now. You're
Yeah.
beginning to see more adoptions of non-password based authentication,
Yeah.
which is great. But it means that threat actors have to change their focus as well, and they've already started. So like token theft so that you can maintain access to third-party environments. And what they're also doing is moving up the stack. So rather than coming after your organization directly, even through token theft,
Mhm.
going after someone that you use for third-party services through a software as a service environment, for
Right.
example. If I
Mhm.
can maintain access to this third-party environment, then I can actually access all of the downstream customers. So it's a much bigger bang for the buck.
Mhm.
So that's definitely one. And then, I could mention the Mythos and GPT-5.5 for cyber. That's going to change things hugely. It's for me, it's not the bottleneck though. Like the vulnerability part of things was never the bottleneck. You'll never find a CISO or a SOC analyst saying, "Could it please have some more vulnerability advisories? Could it please have some more patches? There aren't enough of those. I'd love to get some more." That's
Right.
absolutely never going to be the case, right?
Yeah.
But that's not been the problem. It's not that people are saying, "Hey, I want more vulnerabilities." The problem is the foundations below that. It's the visibility that you mentioned, understanding what do I have? Because if you don't know what you have, you don't know which patches or vulnerabilities apply
Yeah.
within your network. You don't know what's vulnerable, what's not vulnerable. You don't know if you might be running a library that nominally has a vulnerability, but that implementation of it doesn't have the vulnerability. So you need real depth of
Yeah.
visibility to be able to deal with this forthcoming. I don't want to say tsunami because it sounds kind of like disaster movie-ish, but
Yeah.
massively increased tempo of
Yeah.
patches.
Mhm.
Hopefully, longer term, we end up with more secure products being shipped, but there is a period in between when the
Yeah.
existing product that's out there, and I don't just mean cybersecurity product, I mean
Yeah.
everything,
Mhm.
is going to be rapidly inspected and iterated on using advanced frontier AI tools that will surface previously unknown vulnerabilities. That's going to be a big concern.
Yeah, I feel like you've opened my eyes to so many things that I've actually just never even thought about. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. That's all my questions.
All right, thank you for having me.